Hello and welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show where we get real, raw, and behind the scenes on the hardest job on the pitch, a referee. Today I have a very special guest, Kai Ryssdal. If you do not know that name, he is the host and senior editor of Marketplace, the most widely heard program on business and the economy in the country. And he's been doing it for over 20 years. I have to tell you, for about 15 years of my life, every single day on my daily commute, I started with the podcast of Marketplace. And I feel like maybe I've listened more to Kai than maybe my own wife in 15 years. I don't know. Maybe I'm joking a little bit, but I have to tell you, I've listened to him a great deal and I have a lot of respect for him. Kai speaks regularly with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, presidents of the United States, startup entrepreneurs, and everyone in between. Before his career in podcasting, or broadcasting, I should say, Kai served in the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Foreign Service. He spent 8 years in the Navy and actually used to fly jets and landed them on aircraft carriers. Oh my gosh, what could be more difficult? He's a graduate at Emory and Georgetown University, and he lives with his wife and 4 children in Los Angeles. And you're probably wondering, why are we talking to him? He's a soccer referee. Kai Ryssdal, welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast.
Thank you, sir. It's really good to be here.
So it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you, sir. So please tell me why. You've got a very demanding career. You work, wild hours to be able to gather all the stories all around the world and certainly our country every day. Why do you choose also to be a referee?
Soccer's my sport. It was when I was a kid. I played youth soccer. I played in high school, played a little bit in college, played after I got out and I started my professional life, just screwing around on the weekends. I refereed a little bit when I was a kid with my dad, and that's how I think I got started refereeing. And then, when I had kids of my own, soccer was the thing you did, everybody, gathered on the soccer field when the kids were, 5, 6, 7, 8. Coached a little bit. That really wasn't for me. That was just too hard. Wrangling mostly parents, by the way. And then, as the kids got older, I wound up refereeing a couple of their, like U10 games, took some training, really enjoyed it. And the kids, so I've got 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl. The boys all dropped out when they got to 12U. They were like, Dad, I'm done with this. My daughter played 1 season of U14 when the ball got bigger, and more importantly, the field got bigger, right? And she's really petite. And girls, at 13, 14, they can be really disparate in their heights. And she's tiny, and she's like, Dad, it's just too big. So that's fine. And I kept going for myself. And I just decided that that's what I wanted to do. And and now I do it. Truly, I do it for myself. I honestly do.
So it's become your hobby. And so a little bit about as a referee. So what type of games, what age groups, leagues do you ref?
So now mostly I do upper division AYSO 16 and 19s. I do high school boys and girls, varsity obviously in JV. I do colleges as well. I do a little bit of community college and a couple of D3 games. And some club at the 16-19 level. So I do, pretty much, you're never going to see me on TV, right? But I'm out there hustling.
Excellent. Wonderful. And so I would just ask you, so again, you've got a career, you've got 4 kids. I mean, it's very busy, obviously, for you. You don't just have any career. You got quite a career. And I'm sure there's a lot of events beyond just what you do for work. So what would you say to someone, Kai? So you've made this decision to be a referee. I've made this decision to be a referee, and I have a full-time career. What would you say to someone who's referee curious? So their kids have been in soccer playing like you and I, or maybe they've played, but now they're done. They have a full-time job and they're thinking about being a referee. What would you say to them to maybe give them the encouragement to go out and become one?
So the only thing I can do is explain why I do it, right? And I do it for, I guess, 4 or 5 different reasons. One is I just enjoy the hell out of it, right? Just intrinsically. I find it incredibly, number one, physically challenging to be running around out there with 19-year-old guys. I mean, come on, I'm a 60-year-old man, and the best part is that I found out this past varsity season, I can keep up with those guys again. My fitness slacked off, but I went back and I did track work and all that jazz. So that's number one, physically. Number two, I find it really intellectually stimulating to have to make those bang bang decisions when your heart rate is 160, right? It's just really, really good for me mentally and physically. That's number one. Number two is I think I can help the kids out there, right? I have something to contribute, and it's not coaching. It's being out there on the field with the 22 of them, talking to them, right, as play goes on, helping them understand what was great pass, man, nice try. Ooh, sorry, you didn't get it this time, maybe next time. Or, don't do that. I saw that. Come on, let's not do that. So that's number two. Number three is, look, I want to give back. It's a community thing for me. I mean, I've benefited so much from, number one, soccer, but number two, from the community I'm in. And it's a chance for me to contribute. This is my civic give back, So that, that's really the big reason why I do it. And it's just fun.
Yeah, I so empathize with everything that you're saying there about the mental. I actually feel that I am a better professional at work because of what I do on the pitch. Obviously the physical release, but whatever stress is going on or things that might be on your mind, when you blow that whistle and you get on that pitch, you are, 150% dialed in to that match. It's a wonderful escape.
Right. So I was listening to your most recent, or one of your two most recent episodes, and you talked about, how you get up and you work out early in the morning because you got to be in shape for these guys. Yeah. My version of that is I get up and 5 days a week, I either run the trails behind my house for 5 or 6 miles, or I mountain bike up there. And that's my space. That's my me space, right? I mean, the sun's just coming up. I'm able to have what I call like mental elasticity, where I don't really have to worry about anything else, and I can just let my mind wander. The flip side of that is being on the pitch when you cannot do anything about that thing that's bugging you at work. Your boss is a moron. You forgot an assignment. You made an error on the broadcast, right? Whatever that is cannot be in your mind. And if it is, you will absolutely pay the price at the most inconvenient time. Parents and coaches and players will know it. And you're like, I got to shape up and not do that anymore,
I love it. Yeah, no, I completely understand without a doubt. What would you say is the most challenging part of being a referee for you?
Oh, wow. What is the most challenging part? Well, so look, if you want to get technical about refereeing itself, it is still and always game management, right? I mean, I know my foul recognition. I know the laws of the game, right? All of that jazz. But game management, and that encompasses everything, right? It's players. It's on youth games. It's parents. On high school games, it's lots of people, and it's the coaches and the bench. And more to the point, the 22 other people on the field with you, right? You have to have, so I spent 8 years in the Navy, as you said. You have to have what's called a command presence, right? You have to be the authority out there. But at the same time, you can't be a jerk. And that actually was a really big problem for me when I first started refereeing upper division games, 16 and 19s, right? You can't say, we're going to do it this way because I'm the referee, even though that's really what it is, right? You have to get them on your side. You have to have a relationship with them. And that gets really hard to do when the crowd's going crazy, the coach is yelling at him, the bench is riding him, and he just missed an easy shot and sent it over the crossbar, right? And you have to have some conversation with that kid about, look, I saw the push, don't do that, don't grab the jersey, whatever, It's tough.
1,000% agree. One of my women I consider to be a life coach at one point in my career, she said to me, if you appear to be infallible, people will do everything to fail you.
Right.
If you appear fallible, and you're humble and you're open to the possibility that maybe you didn't see something, or maybe they saw something different than you, then all of a sudden, all of that animosity and tension goes away. It's kind of counter what people would think.
And it takes a while for you to be confident enough out there to say, hey, you know what? I saw it differently. I'll keep an eye out. I got you next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you've just made so much money with that kid, right? Because he's like, all right, he hears me. He sees me.
Absolutely. No, 1,000%. All right. So Kai, ever since we talked about getting together for this podcast, I do want to say it is time to do the numbers. And I tell you, all right. I'm not going to bring in the wah-wahs. I don't want to have any copyright errors, but 70% to 80% of officials quit in the first 3 years. 93% of match officials have experienced verbal abuse. I'd love to find that 6% that have not. 60% say their top reason for quitting is verbal abuse. from parents and fans, and 50% say their top reason is verbal abuse from coaches. And so Kai, you're someone who does an economics, business-related podcast. Have you thought about, what different types of incentives or penalties should we be introducing to be able to start getting a little bit of control around coaches and spectators to improve the overall culture around the pitch?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not sustainable when we have so many people, especially the young rising ones, right? The one on your last episode, that kid in England, I guess it was, who got spit on after the match, right? You're like, come on, man, what is that? And this kid wants to referee in the Premier League, and who knows, maybe he's the next Howard Webb. But if that happens 2 or 3 more times, that kid is out, right? It is not sustainable. The only thing I can think of, and maybe this is just me, is that it's, excuse me, it has to be a lead by example thing. And the example has to come from, in schools, that has to come from the administrators, but also the head coaches, right? The head coaches have to make it clear at the beginning of every single season to the players and to their parents what acceptable behavior is. It cannot be that referees keep getting abused like this, because if they do, they will not be there and nobody gets to play. And that would be terrible.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. I mean, I get these messages every single day from young referees, from, older referees, more mature referees. The stories are particularly heartbreaking. And I think you actually mentioned something that's really interesting there. And it's something I've been thinking about. Coaches have to, for most part, have to go to, in high school, I'm sure they go to some training at the beginning of the year. For club coaches, they get their D license, their C license, their B license, their A license. I wonder if there really needs to be more proper curriculum, literally curriculum, for coaches to help them empathize, but also to give them the words, like what would be the right way to engage a referee? If you genuinely have a question or something like that.
Right, totally. Because look, I know that I work really hard on how to approach a coach who's giving me problems, right? You have to be calm. You have to use the words of the laws so that you are technically correct, and you have to get him on your side. One of the guys who really helped me out when I was coming up and learning how to do these higher division games, said you have to make an agreement with him. You have to say, Coach, I understand you're frustrated. I hear you. There's one of us who's going to be around at the end of this game. It needs to be and will be me. So let's have a deal. I'll referee, you coach. Do we have a deal? And you end that with the whole, do we have a deal thing? And you go to shake his hand, or you say, are you with me, coach? And he implicitly agrees, and then everybody's there at the end of the game. You have to get the coach on your side. But look, I think it's more than that, right? Because it's also that behavior by the coach. If the coach is horribly behaved, then the bench is horribly behaved. And if the bench is horribly behaved, well, then the parents and their friends and all of that, they are horribly behaved as well, and that gets nobody anywhere.
Yeah. 1,000%. Yeah. The words that I use, or the phrase I find to be most effective, is, does that sound fair? When it's Coach, I hear that you've seen that. I've looked at it. So does that sound fair? And generally it puts us in a better place.
Totally.
That empathy though, of empathizing, Coach, I appreciate that you're upset. I appreciate that you think you've seen something that I haven't seen. I totally understand that, Coach. I could only call what I see. I will say you did mention about, like, early in your career, you handled it differently as a referee. I feel too, I went through a stage where I couldn't recognize dissent, and I just tried to absorb it and get through it. And then I went to a stage where I would yell back, which is like the worst possible thing you could do.
Right. Yelling back from the middle of the field. And you're like, wow. Yes. And you think back on those episodes and you're like, oh my God, did I really do that?
My God. I mean, yeah, you talk about it. Like, I ref in my community, and I think one time, like, I stopped at a match, and a spectator was like, that was horrible, or something like that. And I turn around and I'm like, who said that? Like, what am I, 2 years old? Right. And so it's finding those times of when it makes sense to have a conversation, and then how to have that conversation that is so critical.
And we should be clear here, I will speak only for myself, but I'm no paragon of virtue, right? I mean, I get frustrated out there, right? But it's the ability and the moment. Here, my high school assigner now, actually, a guy who's been reffing for, it's got to be 50 years. He's
Wow.
damn near 80 years old, right? And he comes and he watches our games. You know, the association that we're a part of, he comes and he watches and he gives you a critique afterward. And he pointed out to me early when I started doing high school varsity games, he was like, you have so much power. You have the power out there, right? The trick is not to have to use it. If you have to use it, but figure out a way that you can get people on your side, that you can manage the game, keep 22 people on the field and the coach on the sideline. If you got to use the power, use it. But with great power comes great responsibility, you know?
Absolutely. So you mentioned that I know AYSO is massive in SoCal, huge in Southern California.
Huge.
Have they put any policies in place? I mean, there's been a movement around the country around zero tolerance. Is there anything like that has now been put in AYSO?
Oh, yeah, that's been the policy out here for a while, right? I mean, I came up through AYSO and I still do AYSO games, and my kids played AYSO, and the policy has been zero tolerance. And in point of fact, if a coach is sent off, then the game is over. So the coaches do have some a sword hanging over their heads, if you will. But you know, coaches who ought to know better get carried away in the moment, and then you have to say, Coach, I'm sorry, this game is over with, right? But there is nominally a zero tolerance policy, but you know.
Yeah, no, I know in Utah there was a state, I think the State Soccer Association in Utah. So if a parent gets dismissed from the match, and this is at youth levels, I think it's U8 and below, they actually have to come and they have to referee like 3 or 4 matches.
See, I would love that. I would love that. I would love that. Sorry.
So Kai, I do have so Kai, you mentioned that you referee high school in the Los Angeles area. I thought I had heard that referees in Los Angeles in high school had gone on strike this year.
Very interesting. It is. So 6 of the 7 referee associations in the greater Los Angeles basin area, over the summer, our association heads went to CIF, the California Interscholastic Federation Southern Section, which runs refereeing and all officiating for all sports, and said, look, football referees get $123 a game. We're getting 70, whatever it was, 5. Are you kidding me? They get to stand in one place. There's like 4 of them out there.
I think there's like 8 of them out there.
Well, yeah. We're running like 6 miles a game and all that shit. Anyway, so we had a, we're not officially a union and all that jazz, right? We're freelancers. But it took, I think, 2 games into the regular season before everybody came to their senses and said, look, we want the kids to play. And so that has all thankfully been worked out. Yeah.
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, yes, we are independent contractors, right? We don't have a union. Obviously, our MLS officials right now are locked out and really having a hard time getting momentum on controlling the narrative and the story there. I mean, some of the things they're fighting for are like so basic. I don't know how much you know about it, but the center referees, if you're an established center referee and you have over a certain number of games, again, you're doing well. You know, the Ted Uncles of the world, the Chris Pensos, you're doing fine. But if you're a Katie Nesbitt, who's a FIFA assistant referee and is making less than $40,000 a year as an MLS referee working 40 weekends a year, do you know they don't give her health insurance?
I did not know that. That's appalling.
So when she is busting her butt down the line and has to cut back and she tears her ACL, well, I mean, you know the stories in this country. I mean, you could be bankrupt from one, injury in this country. Or what if she wants to have a child and get pregnant? My gosh, something like that. But I just mentioned that as an aside. But as referees, we are quote unquote independent contractors, and I think that's part of the reason why it's been hard to lobby for pay increases, but also some of these issues of treatment, of referee abuse and dissent. It seems like it's hard to get momentum as a group because we all are so isolated as individuals.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's exactly right. The other part that's really important is below that top level of the Chris Pensos and the Armando Villarreals and all those guys, right? Most of those people have day jobs.
Oh, they all do.
Because you can't get by just refereeing, right? At the high professional levels below MLS. And so, I mean, obviously they do it for the love of the game, but for crying out loud, let's pay them what they deserve.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's the thing. We demand that they're professionals, but we don't pay them like professionals. I think there's, from what I understand, there's maybe only one or two assistant referees who do it as a full-time job. Everyone else and most of the centers, especially just below that absolutely premier level of center, they have full-time jobs as well. So you work your full-time job, you're 50, 60 hours a week, and maybe you're traveling for that. And then Friday night, you hop on a plane 40 weekends a year and you go travel to all across this country or international. And there's Open Cup games and Nations Leagues and CONCACAF and everything. But these people are working 300 plus days a year every single year for a short period of time, but yet they can't earn enough to do it as a profession. It's a challenging thing.
Right. And let's remember how much time they put in before they got to this level, right? Look, you and I do a lot of games, but honestly, Dave, you and I aren't doing nothing compared to what they were doing.
Let me tell you, when I see a professional referee, when I look at them, I see sacrifice.
Yeah, for sure.
I see sacrifice. I mean,
for sure.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yes, I can choose what games I'm going to do and fit my family's lifestyle. If you're going to do that, you're going to all of those tournaments all across the country. You're working every single weekend. You're working the toughest games, those adult amateur, really tough games, and those semi-pro games. Those are so brutal. Oh my gosh, for not a lot of money. At all.
Yep.
You get like $120 for like 5 hours of work. You're not getting rich off of that.
And you're spent at the end of those games too.
Oh, absolutely.
You're just spent.
Absolutely. So I do have a fun question for you now, Kai. All right. If you could change any two, you get two, I'm not going to make you list out 10. If you could change two laws of the game, or specific situations in the laws of the game, which ones would they be and why?
Oh, wow. All right. This is going to be a blurry answer, but it's a blurry topic, actually.
Okay.
I would refine and get much more specific on the handball offense. The handball offense has become so distorted and fuzzy with all the work that IFAB has tried to do to make it more competitive and more offensively minded, right? I mean, they want goals.
Yes.
But man, oh man. I mean, how many, I watch Premier League every Sunday morning and Saturday, all that jazz, right? How many VARs have you seen that are handballs? And you're like, are you kidding me? Come on. It's like the NFL and what is the definition of a catch? So that's one. I would refine that somehow. What other
may I comment on that?
Yeah, no, please do.
So I feel you and agree with you. I almost wish, like that very famous Da Vinci drawing where they've got the man stretched out like this. Yeah. Like, honestly, if you are here to up here, then I would say you can be guilty of a handball offense if it's from here to here. But if your arms are here down, I really do not think that you can say that this would be an unnatural position for someone who's playing an athletic activity and their knees are bent right here. But if you get out here and you're up here, just make it simple and clean. It doesn't matter what the situation was. I think some would say, well, what about distance or something like that? I hear you. Maybe we could say it's a body length or something like that, or 1 yard away. But honestly, it could be much simpler and with a graphic that everyone can understand, as opposed to these words when you say unnatural position or whatever that might be. It's like, making their body unnaturally bigger. So I'm with you, Kai. I'll give you that one. Yes.
So that's one. And the second one actually flows from that. And I'm going to, I'm answering the question I want to answer instead of the question that was asked. The other thing I would change, and this is the tippy top professional levels in Europe and here and South America and all over, is the use of VAR. And here's why. Human beings play this game, and human beings ought to officiate this game. Yes, we want it to be as accurate as possible. So I would amend VAR rules this way. You can replay it 3 times. They have to be at speed, and then you have to make a damn decision.
Wow.
If you're going frame by frame, if you're going frame by frame on a thing that happened at the speed at which Erling Haaland moves, or any of those guys, right? What are we even doing? And also, it delays the game. The beautiful part of the beautiful game, is that it flows, right? And there is nothing that brings this game to a screeching halt and saps the energy than a VAR check that takes, I don't know, 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
You're blowing my mind. It's interesting because like 2-3 minutes compounded by 3 different decisions. Because you may be looking at a foul. Then I need to see if there's an offside and a build-up. And was there a foul before the offside and the build-up? So it could be like 5-6 minutes. I mean, you're really, it's a bold idea, but I get it. I think that the challenge, Kai, if I could challenge you for a second,
of course,
just to have for you to think about this, is the reason why VAR is so ridiculous down to the thousandths of a second of a frame,
like to the pixel, right? They're drawing the freaking lines on the offside to the pixel. But anyway,
is because the pundits after the match. And the spectators, the fans after the match, the fanatics, I should say, the fanatics are doing that. They are using a still frame. They're going at this outrageously slow speed. And they're like, how could they not see that? Right. But I think that's interesting. If you do frame it up as, it's just going to be doing, it's at game speed. We're going to take 3 looks at it. And if it's not clear and obvious, we move on. And therefore, there may be things that are missed, but that is the game. And I think people are calling out for that, for it to be more real life, as opposed to this outrageously slowed down where everything looks like a red card.
Look, I think you actually raise a really good point. We, the soccer powers that be, have conditioned people to expect perfection in a game that literally one of the rules is no harm, no foul, right? And so it cannot be that we're going to take this game and slow it down and twist it so that we can give the impression of perfection when so much else of the game is, saw that tackle, but it wasn't, advantage play on, whatever it was, right?
That's so funny. I think it's so hard for the casual fan or the spectator also for like anything U10 as well to understand that just because their hand is on their back does not mean it's a foul. Just because they came together does not mean it's a foul. Just because they slid and won the ball does not mean that's a foul. And I think that is the beautiful thing about it, is that there's an ebb and flow and a feel, and you have to have understanding of the game and what does the game want when you make a decision. And VAR takes that out of the equation. There's no longer making a decision because that's what the game wants or deserves.
Totally. I was doing a high school game last season. It was an assessment game, and it was kind of high tempo, and the blue team was kind of bugging me. They were a little chippy, whatever. And there was a red throw in, and one of the blue players goes and jumps in front of the throw in and goes to impede the throw in. Yeah. And I'm like, we're not doing that. Boop. And I cautioned him. Right. Yeah, yes. Honestly, in part because he was being a pain in my ass. Okay. He was just bugging me. And that's just kind of the way it goes. Yeah. Assessor comes up at halftime and says, did the game need that yellow card? And it really kind of didn't. It really didn't. Right. I didn't lower the mood. I just aggravated the blue coach. Right. Because it happened to be right in front of him, and that's what does the game need is such a good line that I mean, I love it so much.
So the assessor was his advice going to be, could you just have had a conversation with the kid?
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he says. As you're running by him, look, man, I saw that. Don't do that again.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, totally. And it's a great sign of a great referee. As opposed to everything to letter of the law, there's an ebb and flow and a feeling. What does this mean? Did I need to throw a card there? Do I not? I will say that's one of the things that drives, again, spectators and coaches nuts. If we're not throwing a card in, say, the first 5 minutes on a challenge, that maybe in the 90th minute might be a card.
Yeah, for sure.
It's starting to get out of control.
Well, right. It's all game tempo and key match incidents and
right. Yes. Yeah. I will say, just coming back to the initial thing of the why, I think one of the things for me and my why is that I will never be perfect at this. It's like, I don't know if it's like a Buddhist thing or something like that, where it's just, you're constantly working on, self, and you're constantly working beneficial, and no game is going to be perfect. No 2 games are going to be exactly like. It's always going to be different. It's a never ending mental challenge and physical challenge, of course. And I think that's what makes it so addicting and so rewarding.
Absolutely. absolutely. And it's amazingly rewarding, right? And it can also be, by the way, it can also be crushing, because if you have a bad game and you know you've blown a couple of calls, I don't know about you, but I chew on them for days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's a sign of someone who cares,
Right.
And that's the advice I try and give to referees who reach out to me about that. It's like, hey, that's good. The best referees do self-reflection. I will also say there's a little bit of an evolutionary biology thing, which is, again, if you walked a path and you slipped and you twisted your ankle because there was a hole there, you're going to remember that and not step into that next time. Or if there was a certain plant that gave you a bellyache, you remember that and don't eat that. You think about that. And so our brain goes to all of the bad experiences very easily. I probably have had hundreds of great experiences or great calls that I made. I can't remember many, but really bad experiences or those negative experiences, or again, getting back to the referee abuse when I was followed out of the stadium with people screaming at me, telling me I was the worst referee ever. You remember that.
You totally do.
You don't forget
totally
it. And it hurts just a little bit.
A little bit.
A lot for a while, and then a little bit for a little bit after that.
But you remember them, and you say to yourself, and it's in there. And the next time that situation comes up, you're like, oh yeah, no, don't do that. Do this.
Yes, 1,000%. And thankfully, the very next day after that experience, someone told me I was the best ref they ever had. So I'm like,
there you go.
I feel good that I'm someplace in between. I'm not the worst. I'm not the best. I'm someplace in between. Hey, Kai, I just want to say, this has been such an absolute pleasure and joy. So I do have a question for you. So I know Will Farrell, another huge personality, is a referee out there in SoCal. Alexi Lawless, I think, is a referee as well. Are there other people that, that maybe the public knows as a public figure, but they also referee that I don't know about?
I don't know. I actually didn't know that Will was a referee. I see him at LAFC games all the time. He's an honored guest there, right? They always show him on the big stadium cam.
I know it. I have seen him I don't know that he centers, but AYSO, he has assistant referee. I've seen pictures with him with a flag, and he goes and stands, on the side of the pitch on the touchline, and he will run a line. And I just have so much unbelievable respect.
That's great
for him for doing that, which is so great. And Kai, again, so much respect for you and what you do and your professionalism and all the wisdom and knowledge and your professionalism and all the wisdom, and finding out a notch in my book, sir. I just can't thank you enough for making time for me and the thousands of people who listen to this podcast. So thank you so much.
I absolutely appreciate the time, Dave, and it's I think you're doing a great service here. Truly, I do.
Oh, I hope you guys loved that podcast as much as I did. Real funny story there. So I was finishing my conversation with Kai, and he's like my hero. And I don't interview a lot of people very often. So when you end one of these video interviews, you can stop the recording, but stay on with the person and talk about next steps. Well, I was like a referee, like a junior referee who had a great opportunity to play advantage ball in the attacking half. They've got possession. They've got the ability to play forward. And instead of just ending the recording, I literally ended the entire session. So I could have been talking with one of my heroes for 5 minutes, and I just hung up on him like an idiot. But he knows I love him. We've messaged afterwards. I'm going to send him some cool Refs Need Love To stuff as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope that your next match is red card free.